On this accord, B2986 is a climate control code that may be tied to how the system is seeing the recirculation door motor position or feedback circuit. The customer may notice the recirculation function acting wrong, not changing when commanded, or the HVAC operation feeling inconsistent. The broad areas to keep in mind are the recirculation control motor, its feedback and sensor common wiring, connector condition, and the climate control unit. Start by clearing the code with the HDS. Cycle the ignition OFF and back on, or use the engine start/stop button to go from OFF mode back to on mode. Then run the self-diagnostic with the HDS or the climate control unit and check codes again. If B2986 or 55 comes right back, continue into circuit testing. If it does not return, treat it as an intermittent fault and check for loose wires or poor connections in the recirculation control motor circuit. With the fault confirmed, turn the ignition OFF. Disconnect the climate control unit 32P connector and the recirculation control motor 7P connector. Now check continuity on the RFDP or FRDP line between climate control unit 32P connector No. 28, the WHT wire and recirculation control motor 7P connector No. 2, the BLU wire. If you have continuity, that wire is not open and you move on. If you do not have continuity, repair the open between the climate control unit and the recirculation control motor. Next, with the same connectors still disconnected and the ignition still OFF, check the sensor COM or SenseCOM line. Measure continuity between climate control unit 32P connector and No. 22, the BLU wire and recirculation control motor 7P connector No. 1, the RED wire. If continuity is present, that line is not open and you continue. If continuity is missing, repair the open between the climate control unit and the recirculation control motor. Now check whether the S5V or S5V line is shorted to the RFDP or FRDP line. Keep the ignition OFF with the climate control unit 32P connector and the recirculation control motor 7P connector disconnected. Check continuity between climate control unit 32P connector No. 24, the BLK wire, and climate control unit 32P connector No. 28, the WHT wire. If there is continuity here, repair the short in the wiring between the climate control unit and the recirculation control motor. If there is no continuity, those wires are not shorted together, so continue to the motor resistance checks. With the ignition OFF and both connectors still disconnected, measure the recirculation control motor internal resistance between motor terminal No. 1 and motor terminal No. 3. This is the S5V to SenseCOM check. The expected resistance is 6K omega plus or minus 1, 8K omega. If it is within that value, go to the next motor movement check. If it is not, replace the recirculation control motor. For the final test, reconnect the recirculation control motor 7P connector, but leave the climate control unit 32P connector disconnected and the ignition OFF. Apply battery power and ground to the motor control terminals, then reverse the connections to move the motor the other way. Terminal A is climate control unit 32P connector No. 19, the ORN wire. Terminal B is climate control unit 32P connector No. 20, the PUR wire. Be careful here. Applying power and ground incorrectly can damage the motor. When the motor stops running, disconnect battery power immediately. While driving the motor, measure between climate control unit 32P connector No. 24, the BLK wire, and No. 28, the WHT wire. The resistance should change between about 0.6K omega plus or minus 1, 8K omega. Also remember that continuity between S5V and RFDP may disappear if the motor is turned to the stop, and the climate control unit usually does not turn the motor to the stop. If the resistance changes through that range, replace the climate control unit. If the resistance does not change through that range, replace the recirculation control motor. The clean way through B2986 is to prove the code first. Check the two open circuit paths. Rule out the short between the 5-volt and feedback circuits. Then use the motor resistance and movement checks to separate a wiring problem, a recirculation control motor problem, and a climate control unit problem. Do not jump to a module or motor until the circuit checks support it. For more diagnostic training, visit stepdiagnostics.com.